Right, let's see what the ERA looks like then. Oh my god, what have we done?
Hey Mini enthusiasts, how you doing? Welcome back, and this is part 3 of the classic Mini ERA Turbo restoration. And following on from the last update, you join myself and Mark as we are stripping down the car. At this stage we're still sort of assessing corrosion, what needs doing on the car. So previously the shell was stripped and was sent away to be sandblasted, and at that point obviously it allowed us to identify most of which panels need replacing, but until you start stripping these panels down you can never be quite sure. So as you may know if you've joined us from the beginning of this build, this Mini itself is a 1990 ERA Turbo Mini, which is a very rare car. This one's in red, of which they made 30 cars. Not sure how many UK cars are still left on the road, but this is one of 30 red UK cars. So it's a pretty rare car, so well worth restoring. Quite remarkably, this car has done in excess of 260,000 miles, which, if you consider the importance and rarity of an ERA, is seriously impressive. For any car to have clocked up that sort of mileage, even modern cars, is pretty impressive. It means it's been maintained well over the years and it's been very well looked after, and that's certainly the case with this ERA. And before we started the restoration it was certainly no basket case. It just got to the point where it has been restored in the past and it's had lots of work done on the past, but following the last restoration it's kind of got to the point where it needs doing again. It was a perfectly usable car, but Mark's looking for something which is as good as it can be restoration wise, so think sort of concours standards. So yeah, that's what this is all about. So you might look at some of this and there's some panels that are being replaced, and there's stuff that on the face of it you might think, well, that was probably repairable, or you could have done something with that, but it's Mark's car, and he wants it to be, yeah, as good and solid as it can be. Certainly what we're finding with the car at the moment with some of the panels is it's on this is probably its second or maybe third, I guess, major restoration. So some of the panels we're replacing and looking at have already been replaced or repaired at least once before, and there's certain things, you can see me there with the top dash rail there, although it was pretty solid, it had been repaired in at least 2 or 3 places along the dash rail, probably on more than one occasion. And yeah, Mark just wants a car as good as it can be. So that's kind of what this is about. So initially I think we were a little bit surprised because, like I say, the car looked in very good condition and it was in pretty good condition. It was certainly to MOT standard, but of course once you sandblast a car, it just, if there's any corrosion on the car, and it might not even be to the point where it's whole yet, once you start sandblasting it, it really just does strip it back to leave you with what is only good solid metal. So it's good from that point of view, but it's really pretty extreme that if you're trying to save something and you're trying to save some metal, it can be quite scary, because it's gonna pick holes and blast holes in anything that's not perfect. So as you saw in the last update, there were some holes in the inner wings and in the front panel that when you looked at them at sort of face value, when all the paint was on there, they looked pretty solid, but of course underneath that paint is just metalwork that has kind of just deteriorated and corroded over the years. So at the moment, just to update you on what we're doing, so Mark has made the decision, looking at the bulkhead, it has been repaired at least once before, and rather than doing more repairs to the bulkhead, Mark has made the decision that he wants to replace the bulkhead, and the plan was to leave the toe board originally, but as we later find out, that's not quite possible. So we're unpicking the inner wings at the moment to release the toe board. It's quite a delicate process unpicking all these spot welds. Certainly the inner wings, there's quite a few spot welds that are there, and this is quite involved, quite a big job replacing the bulkhead, certainly making sure it's all aligned again. So it becomes a bit like a jigsaw at this point. So we're going to be removing quite a few panels on the car. The car needs to retain its structural integrity, and we need to retain some sort of datum points to line things up again. So it's really important to remove panels in a logical and methodical way, and making sure we keep those reference points and not removing too much metal that the body shell becomes unable to support itself. And at some stage, certainly when we start removing the floors, we will brace the shell as well. So I'm fortunate enough to have owned a couple of ERAs myself, both a black UK car and a British Racing green UK car. I'm absolutely kicking myself now because I really wish I still owned them, but mini life goes on. I did find with the ERAs in particular, the owners club, owners group, the people that own ERAs are really supportive bunch of people, very enthusiastic. There's not a huge amount of them because there's not a lot of ERAs on the road, but I think quite a few of them will watch these videos, so really appreciate your support and giving some guidance as we go through this restoration. I'm sure we'll be asking you some questions as we go along, and I hope this acts, or you find this video is useful. So at the moment, just trying to release a dash rail from inside the car, and then we can slide that bulkhead out and look at getting a new one to replace it with. So what's quite remarkable here is I've been working on minis all my life really, so I know my way around them pretty well. So that doesn't really come as much of a surprise, but I think what is surprising is Mark has only recently got into minis, possibly 5 or 6 years ago, and up until I guess 2 years ago had never attempted any work or at least a restoration on a mini, and I think this will be his 3rd restoration now, so he's definitely got the bug. So there we go, bulkhead out the car. As I say, it's quite a substantial chunk of metal to be removing from the car there. I've certainly never replaced a bulkhead before, but needs must. Like I say, you could probably get away with not replacing it, and you probably could repair it, but it's not quite no expense spared. I don't think anything truly is, but considering the rarity of ERAs, and I think their value and future value, it's worth putting the money into restoring them properly. They will only ever go up in value. And certainly I think this car, it's really got an interesting story. So it's a very rare car, but it's been used, and I mean that is fantastic. There's nothing worse than someone buying a rare car and sticking it in a museum or not actually using it. This car has done over 260,000 miles. It's been well used. Lots of people have seen it. Yeah, and by any car standards, that's pretty good going. And this restoration now, you know, the car's 30 years old, and you know, this will last at least another 30 years now, and I'm sure probably much longer than that. So just for curiosity, I get asked a few times, so I've shot home there. So this is not my workshop, this is Mark's workshop. So in my other videos you'll see me restoring Project Sprout, that is at my workshop, and this is down at Mark's. So we're both into classic minis, and we kind of help each other out on these things. So in the other videos you'd see my workshop. So I'm off home now, going off to do some more work on Project Sprout, and obviously Mark continues on the ERA build. Probably not so obvious, but it is about 2 or 3 degrees outside as we're filming this, and you'll see Mark in his t-shirt there. Mark's garage has a lovely heated floor system, and it's always a toasty 20 odd degrees in there, so it's actually quite a nice environment to work. Mark's obviously just cleaning up everything on the front end here, ready for the bulkhead to go back in. We will also be replacing the inner wings on the car as well, but at this stage we've not cut them out because we use them as datum points to align the bulkhead back up, and then obviously once the bulkhead is tacked in place, then we'll remove the inner wings and then align the inner wings to the bulkhead. So like I said earlier, it's kind of a bit of a jigsaw where you're taking a couple of pieces out at a time, and then you're putting a piece back in a different place, if that makes sense. Possibly not. But it's all about keeping its structural integrity and making sure everything aligns back up again. So as far as other aspects of the build goes, so the subframe's all stripped down now. I'll put a video up of that, possibly next update. The subframes will go off to be powder coated. New components will go on to the subframes, so I could do with knowing if there's anyone in the know out there the correct wheel cylinders for the rear brakes, because I'm pretty sure on an ERA they were slightly larger piston diameters than standard brakes to reduce the braking pressure on the back, but I can't remember what the part number was or what vehicle they come off. So if anyone knows, please comment down in the description down the bottom, it would be very helpful. And the engine and gearbox have gone off as well to none other than Ian Hargreaves at Avonbar for a full rebuild and a bit of an upgrade. I'll give you more details on that as we get closer to that, but Mark picked Ian Hargreaves from Avonbar on my recommendation, really, just because I knew Ian is extremely knowledgeable when it comes to boosted A-series engines, and a bit of a legend in the turbo mini community. I couldn't really think of anyone better to be building an ERA turbo engine. Carpets have gone off to a trimmers in the Midlands to be, well, they'll be completely replaced with the new material. Obviously they're sourcing the correct type of carpet. And thankfully through the ERA Turbo Facebook group and the contacting members via the online website, Mark's managed to find quite a few new old stock parts specific to ERA that will go into the build as well. When it comes to painting the car, it will be kept as the standard original colour in red, and through the build there'll be some tasteful modifications I've done that certainly don't detract from the original design of the car. Just some sensible upgrades, especially sort of on the braking system. A few engine upgrades to make it more reliable, slightly more power, and to improve the reliability. But in the main, it will be a very original looking ERA.
This is the old bulkhead. Obviously we've got to cut the turbo box out of it. It's obviously one complete thing, which is better. And then we've got this one. So it's not one piece. That's been stitched on, which is a bit of a pain. Well, it's not, it doesn't make it original anyway. These are different, obviously, compared to these. That's the two holes there, nothing there, which is really annoying. the ridges on them, and that there. Oh, that's the same. It's the same. Oh yeah, and see that there. And you see that small tiny thing. Same there, and then same there, and then what's this? Just so sorry, that does not go with that, so I am going to cut that out and use that whole section. Yeah, so I'm going to get cracking.